episode of the Tailgate. I'm Michelle Margaux, joined by Ralph Vacchiano, Joe Caporoso of Badlands, and Will Parkinson of Turn on the Jets. Joe, we'll start with you. What are your overall impressions of what the Jets have done in this draft so far?
Happy. The Jets, I think, were very aggressive, which I think made sense considering how young their roster was, and had a key focus on making life easier for Zach Wilson while also not just siloing how they improved to the offense. They had really nice balance in getting the consensus top 5 player in the class in Sauce Gardner in an area they needed help at cornerback. But then to still be able to get Garrett Wilson at 10, to get Breece Hall at the top of the second round, and to still go get another pass catcher in round 3 with Ruckert, very encouraging. I think they've done a nice job this year of adding as much as possible around their second-year quarterback so we can learn if he is the guy. And the only way you can do that is if you put enough help around him to really have that be the proper litmus test. I'm not sure they really did that with Sam Darnold. I'm not sure it would have worked out either way, but it was good to see this kind of finish an off season where they added a new guard. They've now added 3 new tight ends. They added a new starting receiver. They added a new borderline starting running back to platoon with Michael Carter. So I think most Jet fans are very happy, which is usually a rarity, but I think we've been happy on this day each of the past 2 years, which is refreshing.
Yeah, the Jets have been for a long time. I feel like it's the drafts, like the quote unquote Jets Super Bowl. And for one of the rare times the last 2 years, it's felt like they've actually, like, there's a lot of buy-in from not just Jets fans, but people, around the league. And it's exciting. They've added skill position guys. They've added guys to go hit the quarterback. They've done all the things that I think everyone going into the offseason said, can you please address edge rusher, please address receiver, go out there and make sure you get Zach Wilson as much help as possible, and put all the ball in his court, right? If he's going to be the franchise quarterback, which I think obviously they want him to be, he has not really any excuse now, right? You got 3 pass catchers. Jeremy Ruckert falling to the end of round 3 was great for them. To get a guy like Breece Hall, who was the consensus #1 back in the class, Jermaine Johnson, that consensus top 3 or 4 edge rusher in the class, the best corner, the best receiver. Like, this stuff doesn't usually happen to the Jets. Usually it's, they end up, everyone goes and they end up with, the guy that you were hoping they weren't going to get. So a lot of reason to be excited. And, now the expectations, you got to start putting it out on the field in September and win some games. Cause hopefully next year when we talk about the draft, it's, they got this luxury pick and they're the Ravens, not 3 first-round picks.
You bring up a great point. This is no longer the Jets where they just sort of sit there and wait for stuff to happen in front of them that leaves them and their fans disappointed. The best part about this draft to me is that Joe Douglas is aggressive. He spent a couple of years building up this draft capital, and he's not afraid to use it at all. He did well with his top 2 picks, but then he sees Jermaine Johnson falling, and he's got him in his top 8. So he forgets about, who cares? He's got to give up a second rounder or 4th rounder. He uses it to get back into the first and get a player that he wants. He sees Breece Hall falling. He tries to get back into the first for him, ends up trading up in the second. He just says, a lot of GMs will sit there and go, I don't want to give up 4th. I'm worried I could get a good player here. No, this is about elite players. And that's what Joe Douglas did. He saw elite players coming to him and he said, I'm going to go get them. I don't care what it costs me. Obviously didn't spend anything crazy, but in those first 4 picks, he got 4 players that they aren't just going to help this year. They're going to have huge impacts this year. He did pretty well later on too, but if you come out of this with 4 impact players, 4 first-round talents, that is a great draft. And that really, no matter what team you are, that can drastically improve your team.
Will, you mentioned Breece Hall. Obviously he was significant enough for them to trade up for him. What are your expectations from him?
Honestly, I have very high expectations. I tweeted it yesterday and I was dead serious. If you told me he's a Pro Bowler, he's one of the Jets Pro Bowlers next year, I wouldn't call you crazy because, again, great contact balance, faster than you might think. It's not getting brought down. He's a great scheme fit. He's just a player that I expect to come in, catch the ball out of the backfield. He's a guy I expect to come in and contribute day one. We saw Michael Carter in college where he was most successful as that 1B back next to Javonte Williams at North Carolina. Breece Hall can be that number 1, kind of bell cow, traditional running back 1. It makes Michael Carter more valuable. If you look at the San Francisco 49ers blueprint, they rotate backs. That's what this offense does. Green Bay does the same thing. So I expect him to probably get 200 touches, whether that's, carries, screen passes, things out of the backfield. I think he's going to be a really big weapon for Mike LaFleur in this offense. And I expect big things, frankly. I think he's the guy of the class you expect to hit the ground running. Running backs usually do that coming out. So I expect him to hit the ground running day one and be an impact player on this offense.
Yeah, he's an electric player. He's going to be the best back in that backfield. And, he might get 200 touches, but the beauty of this system, as you mentioned, is he doesn't have to. Michael Carter is a guy they really like and can play. And Tevin Coleman is a good player if he can stay on the field and stay healthy. And they'll use all three of them. Maybe Hall will be used more than any of them. But now that running game, which is really the strength of this offense and so important when you've got a young quarterback still kind of figuring it out. Now that running game can come at you in waves. And that's when you think about the Jets and what they're doing, almost every position now, they can come at you in waves with a lot of players. And they'll do the same here. Hall can do it all. Michael Carter, like you said, is better as the second back. And now he won't have to be abused. None of them will have to be used. They'll be fresh. They'll be fresh in games. They can be fresh late in the season. All of this is great for the Jets offense.
Yeah, look, I think the Jets want to emulate San Francisco as much as possible. They want to bully you up front. They want to run the football to make life easier on their quarterback, to set up the play action passing game, to take shots down the field to Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore. You need multiple backs to do that. And Hall will add some needed physicality to that running game, who will fit in well running behind Laken Tomlinson and Elijah Vera Tucker, who they've added the past 2 years. And it doesn't mean that Michael Carter is not going to have a big part to play in this offense. I think both of these guys are going to be involved in the passing game. I think always having a fresh back is a positive thing. I don't think you want to count on Tevin Coleman as your top backup. He's a guy who's been banged up a lot. And I think, like Will said, this is the top consensus back in the class. You're giving another playmaker to Zach Wilson. And the Jets candidly dropped a lot of checkdowns and easy passes and screen passes last year, something they struggled with a lot. They left a lot of yards on the field. And Hall's going to help with that. He's going to break tackles and he's going to make things easier for Zach Wilson, so he's in third and long less frequently.
Ralph, do you think that they've done enough to give Zach Wilson everything that he needs? I mean, is the success of this team solely in Zach Wilson's hands now?
Oh my God. I mean, what more could he ask for, right? I mean, they promised him that they would surround him with a better team. They promised us that they wouldn't fail him the way the Jets failed Sam Darnold and really a whole line of quarterbacks before them. And look at what he's got around him now. I mean, they filled the one weak position on their offensive line when they went and got Laken Tomlinson to play guard. Now it's potentially a brick wall in front of them. They have now 4 good receivers. Corey Davis, a big free agent from a year ago. Elijah Moore, so promising as a rookie. Now they had Garrett Wilson, who might be the best receiver in this draft. And they still got a gadget guy like Braxton Berrios. And I still wouldn't rule them out, finding a way to trade for a Debo or a DK Metcalf. They went out and got 2 receiving tight ends in CJ Uzomah and Tyler Conklin, and still drafted a third in Jeremy Ruckert. We just talked about the backfield. I mean, he is completely surrounded by weapons and talent. And, assuming everybody's healthy, if he's no good this year, that's on him. They have given him everything he could want to succeed. He doesn't have to be Joe Burrow this year, but he's going to have to show signs that he can be a franchise quarterback. Otherwise, we're all going to be second guessing whether they got him right.
Yeah, it's a nice contrast to what we've seen from Chicago, who I don't think has gone above and beyond to make Justin Fields' life easier. The Jets have added at every level of the offense. They added to the offensive line. They completely rebuilt the tight end room, which was a real weak spot last year and was a bad mistake, I think, putting a rookie quarterback out there without a proven tight end or two. You saw the impact a guy like Hunter Henry was able to make for Mac Jones. Now the Jets have 3 different options at that position, 3 guys who can move around, be in line, be H-back, split out and play receiver. And you get Garrett Wilson, who I think was the best receiver in this class, and a guy that has a very pro-ready game and could play inside and outside and should fit very well against Elijah Moore. And I know, fans were a little disappointed with Corey Davis last year, but he made some plays early in the season, and now you're not really counting on him to be your lead receiver. You're counting on him to be a complementary piece along with Moore, along with Garrett Wilson, and along with the tight ends. And to now then have Berrios, who was really their number 1 receiver down the stretch last year, be their number 4 receiver. Now you're building depth. You have that much more flexibility. I think LaFleur was really impressive last year with limited things to work with at the skill positions. I think now he has a much more broad, versatile group of playmakers that should allow Zach Wilson to be substantially better. He has to be able to make a leap up around 20, 25 touchdown passes if this team is going to seriously compete you can't live in today's NFL throwing 9 touchdown passes and expect to compete.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope they've done enough for Zach Wilson. I'm not sure, as Ralph said, how much more you could really ask for, right? I mean, they've got people that separated all 3 levels of the field. Short intermediate game, he's got more than enough with guys like Berrios, Moore, and now Garrett Wilson as well. You've got 3 tight ends. As they mentioned, there's multiple backs out of the backfield. You've got a creative play caller. You've got offensive line that conservatively is probably a top 15 unit just on face value without guys like Vera Tucker and Becton taking the next step. You expect Elijah Moore to take another step in a full year next year, a full training camp. Corey Davis, who was a close to 1,000-yard receiver, a former top 5 pick himself. Wilson, I think, is going to hit the ground running. I mentioned how high I already am on Breece Hall. So, there's not many units in the NFL that are this deep. I think one thing that, and I know we'll touch on the defense a little bit, but the Jets have now put guys in the correct kind of where they should be on a depth chart in the NFL, right? Like Michael Carter's a really good 1B, and like now he's in a really good spot. Or Braxton Berrios is a really good wide receiver 4 in the NFL, and like you feel really good about him there. You don't feel as good if Braxton Berrios is your 2, but you feel really good that he's your 4, and Corey Davis is a complementary piece as opposed to that like lead dog X receiver. So yeah, I mean, I think they've given him more than enough talent. Yes, their team's young and it's going to take a little time to gel, but man, this is one of the more exciting, young offenses. I think I was talking about the graphic. I think the average age starter on the Jets right now is 25 years old. That's pretty impressive if you ask me.
Joe, in regards to the defense, they made significant upgrades and Carl Lawson's coming back. What are your expectations for the defense?
Well, they were dead last year, so there's nowhere to go but up. I think this unit has the potential to get in that, let's call it 15 to 19 range. Carl Lawson coming back will be huge. That's the biggest free agent acquisition that Joe Douglas has made. They need him to be that key edge rusher that powers Robert Saleh's defense. He's now complemented by Jermaine Johnson. I think they were okay at cornerback last year. Clearly, they were not satisfied, though, because they got 2 new starters on the outside with Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. And now you have really good depth with Breece Hall and Brandon Echols. If someone does go down, you have guys who have started a lot of games now in the NFL and have made plays before. So I don't think it's perfect. I think they took a big step at safety getting Jordan Whitehead. I'd like to see one more addition there if possible. I don't know if they're done yet because there's guys like Quan Alexander and the Honey Badger still out there if they want to make a meaningful veteran addition still. But on paper, it's substantially better. And the return of Lawson should allow a guy like Quinnen Williams to really elevate to the next level, never mind also having Johnson as an edge rusher now. So if they could just get to that 15 to 18 range, that is a huge jump over where they were last year. And that will also indirectly make Zach Wilson's life a lot easier because he's not going to be down 17-0 in every single game trying to play catch up.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing about how, they've helped Zach Wilson. And obviously we talked about the amount of weapons, but also this defense giving Zach Wilson a chance, taking the ball away. They did not take the ball away at all last year. I think that was something for them. Sauce Gardner coming in and DJ Reed actually take the ball away on the back end. I still think they're a linebacker and a safety short, and maybe, one more interior defensive lineman short of like really feeling good about where this defense could be. But the edge group's really deep. It's got top end talent, but it's also deep. Sheldon Rankins in a full year coming back his second year in the system. Quinnen Williams a second year in the system, getting more comfortable should help. CJ Mosley not having, been out of football for 2 years and actually his body being able to kind of be in camp and ready again should help it as well. So I think, depending on how quickly Sauce gets acclimated to the NFL and, how quickly he can ascend, that's going to be a huge that could be a huge thing for them. If he comes in and he dominates from day one, like a Patrick Surtain did last year for Denver, now you're talking about a defense like Joe mentioned that if they can get to the middle of the pack and you like the talent you have on offense and Zach can take that step, now you're starting to really work with something here. So it's all about, the front four and Robert Saleh's scheme and Carl Lawson coming back and even being 80%, of Carl Lawson. I think it's going to do some big things for this defense.
They thought they were going to be better just by getting Lawson back. Losing him last year was just incalculable for that defense because they had that young secondary. They wanted to protect them with a pass rush, and they knew it. And as soon as they lost Lawson, the pass rush disappeared. Now you got him back with Jermaine Johnson and that whole defensive line. I mean, it's loaded potentially. I mean, inside you got Quinnen Williams, John Franklin Myers is probably going to play mostly inside. You still got Sheldon Rankins in there. They bring Vinny Curry in. Don't forget that he can still be somewhat productive for them. They've got depth. All Solomon Thomas they signed as well. I mean, maybe some of these guys are not full-time starters anymore, but that's a heck of a rotation where you can just keep coming after the quarterback. The key, though, has always been those edge guys. They think they have them now. And if you can disrupt the quarterback in the NFL, your defense can be pretty good.
So, Will, as this team stands right now, is this a playoff team?
I'm going to give you a very political answer here, but if Zach Wilson and Mekhi Becton play 17 games or get close to 17 games, there's no reason this team can't be a wild card team. I think something the Jets have struggled with, obviously, it's been talent, but also every year it's like 4 or 5 games from their starting quarterbacks missing, if not more. They can't afford that to happen. So if they can, the 2 biggest question marks right now are probably the health of Mekhi Becton and Zach Wilson taking the next leap. If they can do that and they can stay healthy, I don't see why they can't be a playoff team. I think they have a better roster on paper than the Patriots. I think they're comparable to a lot of the teams, the Raiders and teams like that out west that maybe have bigger star names, but I don't know that the roster is that much different. If you're young guys, take a step and hit the ground running, and you get Zach Wilson to stay healthy, which you should with this new offensive line and all the weapons. I don't see why this team can't be competing like they mentioned in December and compete for that 7th seed potentially, and have a maybe not the Bengals of last year, where they make the Super Bowl, but definitely take that step and surprise some people and sneak into the playoffs.
They better. I mean, really, I think we've all kind of lost patience with waiting for the Jets to be a playoff team again. And I know that getting into the playoffs has a lot to do with, who you're facing, how healthy you are at the end of the season. But if they're not right there in week 16, week 17, competing for that spot, and I don't mean competing where, you need 7 teams to lose and you need to win out. I mean, really being a contender for that last spot, then we're going to have to rethink everything. Something will have gone wrong with this plan because Joe Douglas has been building towards this. I love everything he's done for 3 years in building this team to this point, but his record really would have gotten a lot of other general managers fired or put them on the hot seat already. They need to win. And with all the money they spent, I think a spectacular draft that they just had, I find a really hard time finding holes on this roster. Again, we're just talking on paper right now, not on the field yet, but it looks like a good, solid roster to me, assuming he got that quarterback right. I know he thinks he did. This better be a team that is 9-8 at the end of the season and having a real shot at playing a playoff game for the first time since 2010.
Yeah, I think even the front office has been vocal and calling it, we have to at least play meaningful December games, which is a sadly low bar to clear. But when you haven't made the playoffs in 11 years and it's the longest drought in the NFL by 5 years, that's kind of where you need to start. And with 7 teams making the playoffs now, that kind of makes 8 or 9 wins potentially a sweet spot. And there has to be a major leap forward this year. For as much as we like everything that Joe Douglas has done, at the end of the day, they're 6-27 over the past 2 years, and they're 0-12 in the AFC East. They haven't won a game in September since 2018. So their season has been over by Halloween the past few years. That is not acceptable this year. You want to tell me that Zach Wilson makes a big leap and they go 8-9 and they're competitive up until the end? Does that mean Joe Douglas has to be fired? Not necessarily. But if they're 1-7 or 1-8 and they're out of it by October again, then something is not right. And if their guys can stay healthy and they get the necessary sophomore leap from Zach Wilson, from Elijah Moore, from Michael Carter, from Elijah Vera-Tucker, it's not crazy to think they could hover around that 500 mark, and a couple things break your way. You win a few games that you shouldn't. They won a few games they shouldn't last year when they beat the Titans and Bengals. Crazier things have happened. So there has to be a notable leap forward this year. It has to be meaningful football in December. And on paper, they should have enough to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it will be. That is all we have time for this Jets draft recap episode of the Tailgate. For Ralph Vacchiano, Joe, and Will, we're going to be right back at 5 p.m. for the Giants recap. So we'll see you at 5. Thank you so much.